As you guys know, I love playing vintage football games.
Touchdown.
Not only could I play these games all day long, I seriously do play them all the time. But there's just one problem with these games that really pisses me off.
He's going to pass. He fires over the middle. No. Batted away.
That problem, guys, it's the passing system. The passing system sucks. Seriously, the old games are great, but the passing game just sucks. The problem is everywhere that I look and I can't unsee it. Seriously, guys, I blame 10-yard fight as usual. Passing in this game is a miserable experience no matter how you look at it. Sure, sometimes you get it right, but you almost always will get it wrong. But then again, even if you're cheating, 10-yard fight is hot garbage, so we shouldn't be surprised that the passing system sucks. But it's a problem. I mean, yeah, sure, we play these games, we could like do running plays up and down like it's the 1910s or whatever. The problem is that the people who really want to play football games really want to have like a passing game. You need to give the people who play your games the ability to like choose who to pass to, and that means you need to also let them see who they're passing it to, right? That's your problem right there. And this is a problem that gave these companies tons and tons of headaches. Here, I'll show you. Okay, here's LJN's NFL Football, which is the worst football game of all time. As you recall, there is no way to see on screen what play you're calling, not that it matters anyway. This game has this bizarre directional pad system. When you push the right D-pad button to choose like the receiver you want, it doesn't make much sense. Then anyway, you throw the pass, your guy like waddles over, and it goes into this horrible close-up mode where you have to then catch the ball by yourself. See, they were trying to solve two distinct problems in this game. These are two problems that 10-yard fight really suffered from. The first is making sure that you can actually, choose who you pass the ball to, so it's not the same guy every time. The second was giving you that joy of acting as the receiver. That's not a bad concept. In fact, the Madden games use the exact same concept to this day, but the way that they put this into practice really, really sucked. But hey, that's laughing, joking numbnuts for you, huh? So in contrast to that, the original Tecmo Bowl arcade game didn't even let you choose from different receivers. You only had one guy you could ever throw the ball to. This flashing guy here, that's your receiver. Of course, once you figure out how the game is played, passing is actually really easy, and you can always break tackles and score touchdowns on like every single play. But again, this game totally sucks. Nobody wants to play a game where you have only one receiver. Anyway, that created this conundrum, and different companies tried to figure out different ways to handle it. Now, I'll start off with what I think is the most effective approach, and then we'll look at some of the more mainstream approaches. Okay, Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES has a pretty simple system where the screen stays steady and you can pick your receiver and you just like throw the ball. Your receivers do run off screen, but if you look at the coverage, you'll be able to tell if they're covered or open. This is important to understand because the harder teams will blitz all the time, which means that you need to be able to react quickly. It's a fair system that gives you an awful lot of challenge, and it is also a lot of fun. You never feel like you can't complete a pass because you can't see anything. Unfortunately, though, the 16-bit games decided to go in a different direction. In the original John Madden Football, for example, you had these awful passing windows, and it was really difficult to use these to read the defense. I guess the idea here is that you're supposed to be able to read whether your receiver is covered or open, though it honestly never ever works right. And the later Madden games get so bad that I honestly never pass if I can help it, since it never works out right anyway. But the alternative to this system was also not that great. Now, the other week, I ruffled some feathers when I talked about how bad the passing system is in the Joe Montana football games, right? Because it really sucks. I stand by what I said. Passing in those games is even worse than in the Madden games because you can't see a thing. All right, look at this. I'm third and desperate from the end zone. I want to throw a long pass, but I can't see any of my intended receivers, and the game doesn't give me enough information to let me know who's open and who's covered. Of course, it's an incomplete pass, naturally. The game doesn't give me any way to actually complete the pass successfully. This problem was widespread, especially in the 16-bit era, and to me it's bizarre since Tecmo Super Bowl and the NES actually did this right, just like I showed you. The key is in the information that the game presents to the gamer, and these companies, frankly, had no idea what they were doing. I mean, sure, it's nice that you can change the view perspective for the play you want to call, but passing in these games still totally sucks. Even when you can see your intended receiver on the screen, the passing system sets you up to fail.
Going for the sideline. No good. That brings up
And it's not like running is much better anyway. The problem is that you can't see a single thing.
San Francisco.
I know you can like keep the camera zoomed out and stuff like that, right? You change the zoom setting or whatever. In fact, let's take a look at this. Let's see what happens when you do that. So we'll look at NFL 94, which is probably the best game in that Joe Montana series. Well, sometimes when you call a passing play, your quarterback throws the ball to the snow for some odd reason. More often, the game simply doesn't pass when I push the button to pass, and I wind up throwing a crazy pass to nobody in particular, which leads to an interception.
Nice job by the defense.
In fact, I'm honestly having a hard time finding plays to show you where I successfully passed the ball since the controls were so unresponsive. And frankly, it's not like the 16-bit video games ever got better at this. The Montana games after NFL 94 were just total garbage. I mean, they really suck. The Madden games finally got rid of the passing windows, so the passing experience was really not all that much better. The problem with the old window passing system is that it required you to look at several different places at once, which is like impossible. Starting with Madden 95, the game used this visual trick to get rid of the windows and let you see downfield, which was marginally better. It still wasn't easy to use, though at least with this game you could sort of see if you were throwing into double coverage or not. And that's the basic system that Madden used up until the end of the 16-bit era.
You'll remember that number.
Again, that system is okay, but it doesn't really give you enough information to make an informed decision. The original Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES was superior in that regard, and that also includes the versions that came out on the Sega Genesis and the Super NES. Just like with the NES version, the reason the 16-bit versions played so well is because the screen didn't move and the game gave you hints. Those hints make it pretty easy to figure out where you should pass, even if you have limited time because of a big pass rush. And it feels satisfying even if you throw an incomplete pass. You don't feel like the game is just giving you a random result. Anyway, it's a real shame that EA didn't learn from Tecmo and use, the system that worked. But there is actually a better passing system in the more modern 2D football games. And yes, it's finally time to talk about Legend Bowl. So if you haven't played this yet and you're a fan of 2D football games, you really need to give Legend Bowl a try. The controls take a little bit of getting used to at first, but the tutorial really is a lot of fun. Even though I'm still not very good at this game at all, I can assure you that the passing system here is superior to anything I've played in the 2D world before. You can choose how hard or soft you throw your pass based on how much you hold down the button, which is a great system that I wish we had more of back in the day. I mean, yeah, technically Madden did have a similar system back in the old days, but it wasn't quite as responsive as it is in Legend Bowl. In fact, part of the reason why I sucked at Legend Bowl in my first attempt is because I was so used to playing these older, less responsive games. At least that's my excuse. Anyway, Legend Bowl is really cool, and the best part is that the game actually gives you enough information to figure out what you're supposed to do. Imagine that. The only problem is actually, doing it. Of course, the more modern technology also means that the screen does a better job at scrolling and showing you the whole field than the older games. Anyway, until I finally figure out how to control it, I'm guessing that I'm just going to stick with that practice mode for now. And I mean, I don't know, I guess you couldn't do the same thing if you were limited to Sega Genesis technology or whatever. But anyway, this shows you a few of the key features that I'm talking about here. The good passing systems make it really easy for you to see what's going on, and it makes the challenge about timing and stuff, not about guessing whether the guy's going to be covered or not downfield. Anyway, guys, check out Legend Bowl if you haven't already. Stop playing the crappy Montana games. Get rid of Madden. We need EA Sports to go away. And Tecmo Super Bowl for life. Talk to you guys later.